and Energy, who's forming part of interviewing panels, Chair. So those are the apologies received, Chair. I see Mr. Lorimer's hand is raised there, Chair.
Lorimer?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just before we start, I see that we did have originally a presentation on shale gas scheduled, but that doesn't seem to be on the program anymore. Is that going to happen at a later date, and when will that happen?
Okay, now we will come back to you on that. Before we start, we'll explain in terms of the program.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, can I check then? I thought there was, I did receive an, but I can't see, I don't want to say something when the person might be in the meeting. I did receive an apology, though not written, I must say, from Honorable Mashaule, who has taken leave. I think I would say, I don't have the, my apology will be that, but I'll make the necessary arrangement that around 12 or so, yeah, before 12, I'll have to shift the position because I will be load shedded at 12. Can we go to the presentation? Now, let me attend to the issue that Honorable Lorima has made. Yes, you are correct. We had supposed to have 4 items. Those items, we had to make a consideration, but also the department made a request that they focus at least on 2 interrelated items, which is the issue of the what we'll be dealing with today, which is what is now it runs away from my mind, the merger of the 3 entities, as well as the issue of the, but I'm sure the department could say itself, the issue of the Milnerton Saldanha tankers, which it was requested. And therefore they requested that because the minister will also appreciate to be present, that in the meantime, whilst they are working on the other 2 items, what is the other one, Aaron? The second one. It's the issue of the solar water heater program that we also reschedule. So we intended to reschedule those 2 so that we do justice on both, to do 2 today and then do the other 2. We want to squeeze, obviously, Honorable Lorima, both of them within the first quarter. If possible, and we agree as honorable members, we can reschedule, we can do them even after a house sitting. I think that's the consideration we had to make, looking at the load that is there, so that we do justice, at least takes 2 at a time. But if that consideration was out of tune, we accept our apologies, we'll take the blame also. But we wish to apologize. But we felt we won't be doing justice because the presentation on its own, when it comes to the issue of the measures and the discussions that could be there, could be very long. Equally, the issue with regards to the issue of the Milnerton, which was requested based on the concerns that members had with regards to the visit that we had both in Saldanha and Milnerton. So that is the consideration we had made. Let me hear you, Honorable Lorima.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I would be very happy. Thank you. If it were arranged this term, that would be very useful. Thank you.
No, you know, nothing falls in this committee. Nothing falls on the cracks, falls away. We keep us on the tabs. That's okay. but we will do our level best to do this. In fact, we realized later, we have never done a situation where we had 4 presentations within a period of 2 hours, because those presentations can take that very same 2 to 3 hours just to be finished on their own. And we have always complained that it should not just be a matter of compliance that, yes, we did present and there's nothing concrete. So we will work very tirelessly to bring those other 2 items again before the end of this quarter.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay. I saw that, if I'm correct, the DG is here, and then I saw the chair of SAF, but let me give to the DG because he's in charge today of the delegation. Babu, DG, Pam.
Good morning, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, good morning to you.
One thing, honorable members, because I know I'm struggling. Bear with me, I just wanted to see that I'm still myself. So from now onwards, you won't see any picture of me until we close the meeting because of the network strength. Continue, DG.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, chairpersons of the SOCs and SAF, colleagues from the DMRE, and everyone else, and the executives who are in the meeting. Chairperson, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to present the 2 presentations, one from by the SAF group and the second one by SFF. Chairperson, I think in your opening remarks, you touched on us commenting on the 2 presentations. I think, Chairperson, you've covered the main reasons for the presentations, but just to add that on the one for the shale gas, we are in the process of going to cabinet with the outcome of the analysis that we've done. And
recording in progress.
We're also making proposals on the way forward. And we believe the committee agreeing to the further item gives us an opportunity to go through the cabinet processes, and when you come back, we are able to provide a comprehensive feedback to the committee. Without wasting time, Chairperson, I will hand over to the Chairperson of SAF to introduce the team that will do the presentation. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, DG. I appreciate the introduction, and Honorable Chair, honorable members of the committee, and also to the DG, the DMRE officials, the chairs of the subsidiaries, the group CEO, and the CEOs of the subsidiaries, and also the executive of the SAF group of companies. Good morning, and all protocol observed. Honorable Chair and honorable members, I feel that it's going to be very important to just preface our presentation today with a reflection on the journey of the merger. And perhaps really just to provide some historical context on the merger as a reminder that we started this journey off round about the 10th of June 2020, where a decision to merge the 3 subsidiaries of the Central Energy Fund, namely iGas, PetroSA, and SFF, was made. This was a cabinet approval that was made on the 10th of June 2020. It is important that one of the, or some of the objectives of the merger really were to look at the commercial stabilization of the group, and also to reposition the subsidiaries, creating a platform for long-term sustainable impact for South Africa to ensure that we attract key investments and we really improve our value proposition in an integrated manner. Indeed, a merger, as you would appreciate, is really a colossal task, and we felt it prudent to source the experienced external service provider to assist us, a service provider that has global and regional and local experience in the oil and gas industry and really has a presence in more than 90 countries so that they could assist us with this process. So in the first phase of the merger, we decided that we would have a steering committee in order to be the highest decision-making body in how to roll out the first phase of the merger, which the team will talk to. And in this steering committee, we had the presence of the DMRE, we had CEF, we had PetroSA, iGas, and SFF as the parties that were going to be impacted by this merger. We also made sure that we have labor in the labor formation in the discussions around the merger so that they are also on board with what needs to be done. So reflecting on the first phase, over a period of 3.5 months, a lot of work was done. In fact, the project team reviewed some thousands of documents. They had several engagements that were conducted with government, with business, with the unions and other key stakeholders. And also, they spent some time assessing the merger model archetypes from a commercial perspective and also from a legal and operational perspective, thus coming up to the lease and assign merger archetype as the most appropriate vehicle for us to proceed with the merger. There was time spent as well on doing a comprehensive baseline assessment, which identified greater than R1 billion in terms of the EBITDA as a potential for this merger, which would be achieved once the merger is done. And also, it was identified that there are market opportunities of up to R95 billion that would be accessed by this SANPC. And of course, we also spent some time confirming the operating model principles and some building blocks for this South African National Petroleum Company. And the governance frameworks and the contracts and the communication platforms are also looked at in terms of really getting ready for day one. Within the 6-month period of the project, we had to finalize the memo to the cabinet so that we could get final approval. So on the 5th of May 2021, we prepared a document to Cabinet Committee and we made a presentation to Cabinet Committee in terms of the merger archetype and also the approach that we would have in delivering the SANPC. Cabinet Committee at the time then requested that we do a independent secondary review process by senior counsel and also look at an investment advisory expert to advise us on both the commercial and the legal parameters of the merger. So of course, we had to go back and do this work. We sought experts to assist us with this so that we can provide to Cabinet the necessary commercial and legal assurance that the way that we are going with the SANPC is indeed the appropriate way. In parallel, however, we were given permission to proceed with other transitionary governance solutions and other activities really which were not going to hinder the process. And with those, we indeed continued. The legal and commercial due diligence came out positive, confirming sound principles that underpinned the proposed merger archetype. And in that process, then it led us to November 2022, where the group finally received Cabinet approval to proceed with the implementation of phase 2. And the team will elaborate a little bit more on what the phase 2 actually entails. So, Chair and honorable members, really we believe that this merger will be a catalyst of unlocking huge economic potential and value for the country. And indeed, we need to now accelerate our efforts in making sure that we finalize the implementation of the second phase so that we can finally get to those 95 billion rand market opportunities that have been identified. It is important that this journey has really been a very, very long journey. We had hoped that we would do it in a shorter time, in 6 months. However, as I have explained, there were a number of activities in between that we still had to do. But we really celebrated the milestone of having received the approval, which then takes us to the second phase of this process. It is here that I really would like to appreciate the support that we have received from the committee and also from our honorable minister, from the officials at the DMRE, National Treasury, other state-owned companies, regulatory bodies, and all the stakeholders that have supported us in the journey. And of course, the involvement of the trade unions and the leadership from Dr. Pullo as a group CEO, together with his executive, in making sure that we travel this journey and we get to the point where we are. I think at this point, it would be appropriate then to hand over to the CEO, to the group CEO, Dr. Pullo, to take us through the presentation so that you can be appraised of where we are now and how far we still have to go. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members. I am now handing over to the Group CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, DG, through you, Chairperson, honorable members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present. Let me start, put on the presentation mode. Chair, through the DG, I would request that perhaps as I start with my presentation to then stop the video and then at the end then to switch on in order to improve on the quality of presentation itself. Thank you. Well, in terms of the outline of the presentation itself, we provide an overview of the major roadmap as part of the phase 2 deliverables. We also outline key deliverable components and other primary areas, define how the plan to implement the core governance structures will be responsible for incorporation of the activities. They share the key milestones and highlight a key risk and state the status of the update on day 1 readiness planning. Now, following the conceptualization of the SNPC in phase 2, the finalization of both legal and commercial validation, as the chair has highlighted, and the subsequent cabinet approval, the focus will now shift to finalizing the operationalization of the SNPC and the facilitation of transition being phase 2. Now, when you look at the right, you would see that on top, you would have phase 1, all deliverables that are completed, which if you go to the first column on the design side, SNPC design, you would notice that the conceptualization of the SNPC, that it consisted of the measure mechanism, baseline, study, strategy, organizational level 3 design, and 8 key elements as approved by the cabinet committee. Now, let me just maybe perhaps highlight what were those 8 key elements. One was the transitionary governance solution. The 2, it was the human capital arrangement, which was finalized, service level agreements, which were finalized, employee communication strategy, which was finalized, information technology platforms, finalized, the finalization of the lease and assign agreement, finalize the financial engagement strategy and setting up of an investment committee, finalize the SNPC branding activation strategy, also finalized. Those were key 8 elements as approved by Cabinet. And then we move to the next column of operationalize SNPC. In it, we will see that SNPC was registered and incorporated with appropriate governance structures in place and lease and assign agreement signed. That's the phase that dealt with incorporation. So that is complete. So now in the middle, or where you would then see phase 2 starting, the government decision critical for the next steps. One key was taken by Cabinet, as we said. So the internal one include, amongst others, the issue of then mobilizing resources into this entity. And in that, where we are currently, we then are starting with phase 2, wherein we start with the stabilization of the entity. Now, the entity is supported by obviously SEF until capacitated through the transfer of relevant business aspects from the legacy entities. And from there, we then move to the optimized phase of the new entity. By that, activities that are key and have already started. Amongst those is elements such as your gas trading, your gas to power initiative, storage infrastructure elements. And from there, in year 3, we would then see the transformed SNPC completely with footprint in SADC amongst those, and quite a serious footing on the retail business. That's where we'd be saying we are a vertically integrated energy company, like the rest of the entities in the world are basically heading to. Chairperson, during this phase, the activities will be focused across the 4 key areas of delivery. And those relate to, in the main, the major transition, as you can see on the left, with the regards to the operating model, the finance and funding synergies. By the operating model, what we are basically referring to is the definition of key requirements for the transitional journey, the conclusion of the SNPC transitional structure and transitional services agreement, interim solutions to ensure the SNPC can function as we finalize the design and transition of the assets, people, and contracts. And on the finance and funding, we're looking at basic evaluation and finance of funding and of the legal assets at fair value, the finalization of key capital commitments and other funding requirements. And at the bottom, basically, so milestones, which we will then deal with in the next page. And going up on the project enablement, you have your integrated management office activities and your leadership change and culture activities, as it were. Now, turning back to now the milestones, you would notice that there are dependencies, of course, when it comes to these milestones, but we wanted to highlight a few that the critical approvals and activities as of now for the activation and 1st of April has taken place. I have the right, so I have to admit the people, sorry about that. So the alignment with Treasury and DMRE on Section 51, 54 application, the SNPC Transitional Board CO approval, SNPC, the Transitional Services Agreements approval, the SNPC location and infrastructure support to launch the communication plan and to ensure that major execution teams are appointed and performance contracts are amended. So that point, basically, it would be, in our view, 8 weeks from now, from April, it will then will enter into what we call the lease and assign. That will be the date of signature. We then move to week 14, where we look at other critical approvals. At this point, approval for the finalized list of assets and contracts that will translate into SNPC, by the SNPC transitional and legal transitional boards. Permission to proceed with relevant license application will then be done, and in week 32, that is from 1st of April, will then look at alignment with labor and section 197 process, approval of the SNPC, the basically structure then being finalized, and approval of the employee to be transferred. At that stage, that's when we'll be saying that the transition detailing complete and the implementation of starting point will then kick in. And then you would have then by week 45, critical approvals that we'll be looking at. Approvals will be the fulfillment of all critical condition precedents signed off by the SNPC and legacy transition boards, as it were. Then would have that as your effective date, as it were. That was basically trying to highlight the elements of the critical path. Now, when we come to the next slide, the establishment of the SNPC Transition Board and Legacy Transition Board will begin after consultation and alignment with the minister based on various design principles. At this stage, the SNPC Transition Board guiding principles will be to design the design that is guided by the statutory requirement on the Companies Act as a reference to ensure timeless appointment, transfer of institutional knowledge, and integrated decision-making, representation from shareholders, that is DMRE and SERV, and legacy entities, PetroSA, iGas, and SFF is then proposed. The leverage, we then leverage on the SERV board committees in order to also not to bloat the cost during this transition, to enable leaner structures while satisfying statutory requirements. SNPC endeavors to observe good governance principle as articulated in King reports. And from there, Chairperson, after seeing this transition board with the directors appointed, the SERV board committees leverage on that to satisfy, of course, the requirement as said before, wherein we'll use the SERV board for the audit and risk committee, social ethics, governance and nomination, and your HR and remuneration committees. We will take basically that route for efficiency. Opportunities on optimizing the legacy governance structures will then lead the boards in line with the integrated reduction of operation footprint, limiting governance costs and tedious decision making. Because as you know, otherwise you have this board that has to then go and escalate some matters at the SERV board. So you are trying to kill a layer there by ensuring that at that point the SERV board committees are used for that, and that will save time for decision making and costs. As is the case in the transition SNPC board, SERV board committee will be leveraged as earlier on alluded the chairperson. So we then these boards will not only fulfill the statutory requirement, but also enable efficient execution of the transition activities to stabilize the SNPC. The transition boards will establish until the permanent board can be appointed. The legacy transition board will be established until entities are wound down. The transition board will be accountable for core transition activities, including to enter into the lease and assignment agreements and all supporting agreements, to finalize the organizational structure up to level 4, to understand employee implications, to facilitate the section 197 transfer of employees, including labor processes, to obtain consent from the third parties for assignment of contracts, to obtain consent on transfer of assets, to transfer and apply for required operating licenses to secure the financing for the entity. Now, in order to drive core decision making and take responsibility for execution of the transition activities, a transition executive structure must be established. The transition executive committee will be established through a seconding of legacy employees in the short term. And the activities of the EXCO will, amongst others, look into entering the list and assign the issues of detail, design, elements of obtaining necessary consent, and indeed to ensure that we then transfer all required licenses into this new entity. What are we looking at with this transition? We are not looking at the state of permanence. We are looking at the timelines of around 4 to 6 months in order to get to the end state in terms of these governance structures. Now that the cabinet approval has been obtained and incorporated, the signature of the master list and assignment will now proceed to enable the start of all transition activities, which means that the transition activities can be able to commence. Amongst these activities, Chair, and role players, you would see that when it comes to the Central Energy Fund, the Central Energy Fund as the shareholder will provide overall oversight across all activities, will also ensure alignment with ultimate stakeholders and the shareholder, and enable relevant transition business solutions for the SNPC, whilst your advisors will oversee and coordinate various transition and design activities, basically assisting with managing the risk overall. Legacy entities will prepare the transfer of assets, people, and contracts to the SNPC, whilst they negotiate with the SNPC on activities and transfers, whilst also preparing for the transfer of people, assets, and the contracts, as it were. Now, the core function of the SNPC, as it were, will be the day-to-day running of the business, including, decisions for location, transitional services agreements, and key secondments, as it were. So a detailed operating model design will then be finalized at that point, and facilitating therefore the transfer of those business aspects. Now, based on various self-stroke engagement and learnings from phase 1, several factors will be critical to the success of the phase 2. And key success factors, we've identified 4 of them, starting from the 4th one, detailed transition planning and management, where clear milestones and accountable parties outline adequate tools and progress monitoring are developed, and a lot of this is also being done already, Chairperson and honorable members. And 3, we're looking at the 3rd aspect, to say the structured change management program, wherein there is support on the leadership front and dedicated change management networks and proactive change and communication plan. The other aspect that would ensure success is dedicated transition resources, where adequate availability and time to invest is basically given space, and driven by people with influence, of course, will be looking at the senior management to drive this initiative to ensure that there's clear accountability and responsibility, and performance contracts are amended to reflect the major activities. And of course, the other aspects of this key success factor is centralized coordination. As soon as the major execution team is finalized, they'll have to formally be appointed and performance contracts amended so that we can hold people accountable for the delivery. I think I have emphasized on this point here. This will be now when you come to this daunting one, Chair, I wanted to focus on just key issues on it. The transition plan will serve as a roadmap for navigating the transition owned by the project management office and executed by allocated transition teams, giving us a high-level roadmap. If you may allow me, Chair, you will see that the first one has to do with enablement of the SNPC. And what is key there to note is basically the implementation of the Transitional Services Agreement. And that timelines outlined there quite clearly. And you also would then see on top of that the appointment of governance structures, basically with a lot of acronyms there, but I think they are explained as well. And then the second key area of input that I would like to bring attention to is on the people side, where we look at the wave of appointment of key personnel, the CEO, CFO, and your capital human resources head. And therefore from there you then move to the second wave now, where you're looking at the supporting staff to those key appointees. And you move, like we say, we're looking at 4 to 6 months. We then move to a state of permanent appointments. In terms of the risk, we anticipate there could be legal issues, and if there could be any of the hostilities there, we want to believe that engagement with union continuously and addressing labor challenges would assist us in basically working together with unions so that there is a very clear benefit that is demonstrated to labor, as it were. Two, we are anticipating there could be operational disruptions, and how do we mitigate that? Regular engagement with the employee to limit anxiety and insist on effective execution, basically your change management initiatives. Infrastructure, migration challenges and data losses, mitigation of it, we're looking at detailed migration plan and scale up resources to support migration process. Project delays, of course, this is an inherent risk in projects, but however, with the mobile staff of project management officers to track overall initiatives in various legacy entities will assist in ensuring that this risk is mitigated. The SNPC naming right, we had a third party that laid a claim to the SNPC, including the domain rights. We successfully challenged this with the CIPC tribunal, but there's an appeal. But we anticipate that we are comfortable that we will be able to win again. Now, in closing, Chair and honorable members, we've made progress in a number of activities in preparation for day one. Now, few issues that need still to be finalized relate to the legacy transition solutions, including basically the finalization of approval of the transitionally CEO, the board as it were, and the board charters and legacy nominees for the board itself. And to that extent, there's progress in some, and some are still work in progress. Finalization of the lease and assign agreement, updating and approval of the final lease and assign contract for transition SNPC and legacy board that is planned. Day one readiness relating to the branding, the launching of the framework, day one communication plan, transitional location. All of these activities are complete. The registration of the incorporation of the SNPC, positively continued engagement and support ultimately to the shareholder on a number of progress has been realized, and we are sure that with time, basically we will be able to succeed with section 51, 54 application to Treasury, and that is in progress. Registration of the SNPC with the CIPC and SARS is completed. We managed a legal challenge that came with that, as alluded earlier on. Chairperson, I thank you.
Honorable Chair and honorable members, that is the presentation then that outlines the progress on the merger and what the next steps are in the second phase. So I'm going to hand over to the DG now and to assist to take us forward on the process. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Chairperson, that's the presentation. We'll take guidance from you if we could proceed with the second presentation. Honorable Chairperson, can we proceed with the second presentation?
Chairperson.
Done. Are you done?
Yes, Chairperson, we are done with the first presentation. We just want to know if we should proceed to the second one.
I wanted to ask, I thought that was going to be the case, but if honorable members are not comfortable, I thought we were going to do both.
No, I
got
to Pretoria and I need to drive back. Can the chairperson mute the mic on the other side?
Can I thought the chair was going to allow you to do the, if honorable members now, because it's here to do, can we do that, allow them to do both and finish? I thought that was the agreement. Continue, DG.
Okay, Mr. Chairperson. We'll now, I'll hand over to the SFF team to do the second presentation.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. Good morning, the SAF Group Chair. Good morning to DG, BDGs who are on the line, colleagues on the line. I'm going to talk through two parts of the presentation. The first one will just be on Saldanha storage fuel terminal, and the second one will be Milnerton storage refurbishment update. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, the Saldanha, we applied for Section 79 a while back to handle finished products in addition to crude. So far, what we have done is we have finalized the terminal operator agreement, basically handling storage of crude and LPG and finished products. We've also have a terminal lease agreement, which has been finalized, and we're busy with the tariffs on that one. Next slide, please. Honorable Chair, one of the projects that we are driving is the development of a berth 104, which is the berth that we use in Saldanha, and of course the pipeline for LPG. So we bought a position in LPG storage, but the challenge in the Western Cape has always been the ability to offload LPG, especially in winter, when the soils are pretty high. So we're actually going to be building the LPG pipeline to the jetty so that we are able to offload LPG during winter, to avoid the case where the vessels tend to go back and the country runs dry. So SFF acquired LPG facility in Saldanha from Averia. Construction of LPG pipeline from Berth 104 to Averia storage is actually at the planning stage, and NESA construction license application was submitted in January. Next slide, please. Honorable Chair, in terms of the project program, we, as I said, we have bought 60% of Averia assets. There are 2 assets in Saldanha, which is Sunrise and Averia. And at the time, we actually approached both of them. Sunrise rejected us, but Averia agreed, and ultimately we acquired that. And that acquisition and the approval was done in Q3 of the 21-22 financial year. And the approval for Competition Commission Chair took much longer. Actually, we had opposition from some of the players in the market against the measure. That actually took us to Q3 of 22-23. So we effectively lost a year. Just going through the process of trying to get that approval, which actually, unfortunately, we had not anticipated. And SFF appointed a panel of engineering consultants and contractors for the construction and the development upgrade of Berth 104. That was done at the same time as the approval of the Competition Commission, because we could not do much while we were waiting for the Competition Commission. We had to wait, but we started lining up the procurement process to make sure that that is done at that time. And the service provider to be appointed to develop final detailed engineering. The tender process started, received proposal of the engineering panel. And SFF engineering panel was appointed in Q1 23-24. Actually, that's what we'll go into. Should be finalized by then. And NESA approval for the construction of license. Our hope is that at least by Q2 we should have that approval in place. And then our outlook, Chair, is that Q3, Q4 will actually commence the LPG pipeline, and we're giving ourselves 12 months, so or less. Our hope is that the next winter we should be able to have that pipeline in place before the winter hits, so that we are able to receive that LPG. Next slide, please. The OTMS tie-in and NESA tariff, Chair, the honorable members would be aware that oil terminal, oil taking built the terminal next to us, which is our competitor, and SFF application for storage and loading facilities was approved. So what used to happen, Chair, is that we had, the offloading separated from the pipeline that goes to the tank, and then storage as well separated. So with the engagement, we then agreed that we will combine the offloading and the pipeline, because they were calling that pipeline ancillary pipeline, so we should not actually classify it as a pipeline. So the ancillary pipeline and the offloading is one activity, and the storage is another activity. Chair, we applied for tariffs through NESA, And actually, we recently received, the rejection from NESA. Actually, there were some misunderstanding in terms of some of the activities. So as late as 2 weeks back, we had a discussion with them. And I think there is now clarity around, those gaps. They've given us 30 days to go back to NESA. And we actually hoping that, we should get that in the next so distant future, not so long distant future. And Saldanha Terminal is handling OTMs as a crude vessel through SFF jetty. So although we do not benefit from our competitors' customers in terms of storage, but in terms of offloading, we still get some revenue for our activities for handling the loading and offloading of those vessels. Next slide, please. Chair, that's a story around Saldanha. Just in short, we have actually, implemented Section 79, and all we need to do is build a pipeline and get the tariffs approval. So Saldanha would be operational, and that has been the key revenue generator for SFF, especially when the market is in contango. Basically, forward market is higher than the current market, but currently the tanks are not full because people in the market and the market views the forward prices as lower than the current prices. So there is a reluctance to stop, but we continue to prepare for the future when the market turns. Next slide, please. Chair, in terms of Milnerton, the honorable members will remember that there was a visit to Milnerton storage, and at the time we spoke about, the plan to refurbish Milnerton. So that process has been underway, and what I'm going to talk through is just to give members an update in terms of where we are with that process. The next slide, please. Chair, Milnerton refurbishment, upgrade in the third quarter of 2019, we closed the tender and selected the service provider to start with the work on Milnerton. Unfortunately, as a result of COVID-19, the negotiation and finalization of the contract were done, but we could not take that to the natural conclusion as a result of the shutdown. So people were not available. So we actually missed a quarter on that. We then had to cancel the tender in Q3 of 2021 and just had to restart the process because it had been too long and we couldn't just keep it waiting. Q4 of 2021, we appointed the service provider to clean 4 tanks, because our view was that we need to take the process step by step. I mean, we've got 39 tanks, and as we upgrade, we also need to make sure that the project can sustain itself. And Q4 of 2021, we completed feasibility study and submitted the business case to the SFF board for approval. The board at the time, of course, came back with a challenge for management and said to us, it's okay to upgrade, but we need to make sure that we got off-takers to be able to repay the money that we are investing in the upgrade of the project. So the main focus was actually to make sure that it is, self-sustaining. Of course, the challenge at that time then is that people would not just commit until they see the tanks. So we did receive some letters from some international traders. We also had feedback from Astron, who's a refinery next door, to say if the storage is upgraded and is operational, they will use the storage, but they could not give us a commitment in terms of the contract. Just to mention there, Chair, part of the reason why Astron was looking at our neighbors in Saldanha is because it gives them the flexibility in terms of blending different grades of crude to be able to actually improve their refining margins. So our tanks in Saldanha are too big. They don't have the flexibility to blend, and as a result, they actually had to look for tanks which are much smaller than our tanks. And SFF appointed a panel of engineering consultants in Q3 of 2022, and the service provider appointed to inspect and develop the scope of work for the refurbishment of 5 tanks over 2 years was actually appointed, and the appointment of the engineering panel to refurbish should actually be finalized by the end of this quarter. Next slide, please. So, Chair, just in summary, the refurbishment of 5 tanks, we're looking at 23-24 financial year, and development of logistics infrastructure, which is a pipeline and the loading, offloading arms at the Cape Town Harbour. We're looking at that being completed, in 24-25 and 25-26, and then the refurbishment of the next batch of tanks, which is another 5 tanks, will be done with the infrastructure development. Part of the challenge with Milnerton and Cape Town in general is the constraint of offloading capability, because you have to go through Astron terminal. So that's part of what we're looking at as a solution in terms of the infrastructure, the logistics and pipeline. Commissioning of Milnerton Farm, tank farm. We actually say that our major milestone of tank farm commissioning would be 26-27. So that's the roadmap that we have set ourselves. Chair, I think it's worth mentioning that just to do 5 tanks and logistics infrastructure and pipeline is actually more than 500 million South African rands. So hence we felt that the best way to actually get Milnerton going is to take it one chunk at a go, to make sure that as we go to the next stage, there is revenue that is coming through from the first phase, and in that way we should be able to sustain the operation of Milnerton. Next slide, please. Chair, that's the story on Milnerton and terminal and Saldanha. And Milnerton, basically, we have already started. Since the visit by honorable members, we've cleaned 5 tanks, We are actually in the process now. The engineers are on site working on the first tank, and we planning that in the next year we'll actually finalize the 4 and have 5 tanks ready. And then after that, we'll deal with the logistics and deal with the next tank, Chair. Chair, I will stop here and run over to Group Chair and DG. Thank you.
Thank you, Ntate Moagi. Group Chair, I don't know if you want to come in before I hand over back to the Chair.
I think I'm covered, DG. We can hand back to the Chair. Thank you.
Chairperson, those are the 2 presentations from the SEF Group and from SFF. I will now hand back to you and the members for us to address any clarity, questions or issues. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable members, let's do it this way. Let's start then with the merger report. Can I request, Aaron, I understand that you reflect the self presentation so that if members wants to make reference to any of the sections of the presentation, we can then make a reference on what is reflected. Honorable members, can I take hands? I say Honorable Mailam, Honorable Matogwe. Is there any other hand? Going 1, going 2, going 3, closed. I will ask my question later. Honorable Mailam and then Honorable Matogwe.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I'd like to thank the SEF Group for the presentation. It was most informative. I do have a couple of concerns, however. The first is this: the primary motivation for merging these entities was to ensure their profitability and their long-term sustainability, to create efficiencies and increase opportunities for the business of these entities. Now, what we've been presented with here is very much operational and organizational, but it doesn't address the business plan of the merger process. I'm also concerned, Chair, that the entire presentation, it doesn't have, and I might have missed it, but it appears to be a rehash of a presentation we saw some time ago, but it doesn't have the hard dates that we can expect. So we're talking about timelines, and if we can just go to the I think it's the second last slide of that presentation, the one with the timelines on it. Oh, there we go. Sorry, that one. Yes. So you've got like months displayed here, but we don't have a hard date of when this merger process will be completed. And so I might have missed a reference to that during the presentation process, but could we get an indication of where we are and how far we are behind or ahead of schedule in terms of the merger process? Thank you, Chair. That's my questions with regard to this presentation.
Greetings, Chairperson, and greetings everyone in the meeting. I'm going to request to switch off my video because of network that's unstable, but I just needed to show face as well. I would also like to welcome the report, and I think the issue of logical timeframes has been covered. because I think in this presentation, we are getting year 1, year 2, and year 3. I think that's one of the things that we got there, but it doesn't specifically say that year 1 is 2021, is it 2024, is it 2021? So that we really get an understanding of when exactly are we expecting for this measure to be completed. And I remember this is also a question that I'd asked in the previous week. I might have missed it in the presentation or when the presentation was being made by the chairperson, but I don't recall us being told that by this specific time or by this year, we would have been done with the measure. A second question that I have is I understand that there was during the preamble or the introduction, if I may put it, that some of the things that are leading to the delay or that led to the delay is that there is consultation and also benchmarking of what is being done in other countries. I think there was even a value that was given of the number of countries that have been interacted with. And my understanding was that even before the request for these companies to be merged, there should have been a feasibility study. That type of work should have been done then. It does not make sense that a request is made to cabinet to merge companies, and then when you're given the go-ahead, you then say, no, we're still actually going to do research on how we're going to merge. I'm of the view that immediately after the go-ahead was given, even though we had a number of issues about the merger itself, but now that the go-ahead had been given, surely by now it can't be that it has taken so long for the measure to be implemented. We also need, or we had expected that this presentation would also speak to, after this merger has been completed, how do we expect it to contribute financially or to assist these companies financially, and I am not getting that. The third question that I have, I do see, like I said, that it was said in the presentation that there is benchmarking and consultation with other countries. I think there was even the statement that was made that we are doing this just like other parts of the world. So I'm quite interested in whether in the group, interacting and even taking notes from other countries, are they also taking into consideration South African or exclusively South African issues or challenges that may arise? Because we don't want a situation where one takes just a copy and paste of what is happening in the US or what is happening in China without actually necessarily taking into consideration the issues that we have, like the issues of economy, the issues of the population demographics and all those things. And specifically when we're speaking about oil, gas, and petroleum generally, is that we have on a number of occasions been told by this, in these meetings, that there's a serious issue of siphoning of petroleum, or there's a serious issue of stealing, and there are serious syndicates that up until now, the department and the police have not actually managed to crack down or to actually stop that. So one would have been interested in that, is there a plan that when this measure is completed to deal with such issues such as crime, issues such as syndicates, so that we do not get a position where we're told, yes, we are done with the measure, but now we are dealing with syndicates and all these things and we're unable to address them. And therefore, the expected or projected profits that we were supposed to get from the company, we're not able to get them. So has provision been made for all these criminal activities that we know are happening currently and will actually might even intensify later? The fourth question, I think it's on the composition of the transitionary board and the transitionary executive committee. I do understand that it was said that at the moment you will be considering legacy employees to be undertaking that responsibility. But we actually get to see a very worrisome or concerning trend of appointing board members, not necessarily in this department, but in various fields where people are just taken, but they do not have the necessary skills or the necessary experience that is directly related to the work at hand. So I'm just interested in the event when you are composing these transitionary structures, will you be looking at people's experience? Will you be looking at their qualification in relation to the work that they're supposed to be doing? Will we be looking, what kind of traits are we also going to be looking at the people that we are going to be considering? And also, will you be looking at their commitment levels? Because you do not want a situation where you put people into the board. We are expecting them to put a lot of effort and time, including in the executive, because this is a very new venture, which therefore means it would need people who are going to spend as much time as possible on this. And then people will tell us, no, actually, I have other business interests, or I have other things that I'm busy with. And we do not want a situation where this company, when it lifts off, it's a by the way for some of the people that have been given a responsibility to steer it in the right direction. The fifth question that I have is that I think we are now busy with the public hearings on the upstream petroleum bill. And in there is a provision, or rather a suggestion, for a petroleum agency, which we are of the view that its primary responsibility are along the lines of mainly doing administration and issuing of licenses. So I'm just interested that how will that petroleum agency, if it is approved and it works, how will it work in relation to the petroleum company? And why does the petroleum company not actually undertake all those responsibilities that are suggested, if I may put it that way, or that are recommended to be done by the petroleum agency? And how does the petroleum company plan to make sure that there is proper participation of the state when it comes to actually making money? We don't want a situation where, like we have in the state-owned mining company, where it tells us, yes, we are there, but we have to tender like everyone else. And in most cases, ESCOM does not even consider us. So what is it that we're going to make sure that this petroleum company, as and when it is needed, to actually do work that will speak directly to service delivery, to the economy of this country, that it will be actually taking maximum participation? What is going to be done to ensure, or what is this company going to be doing to ensure that there is transformation in the petroleum industry altogether? And more that there is maximum participation of Black people in the industry, which we are not seeing currently. And then another question, I think it's just on, not necessarily now, but it's just whenever we get these presentations of CEF, and I see the color scheme, I think a lot of people would not actually mind such things, or they would not look into them, but colors and symbolisms are extremely very important. And I always just get like an apartheid flag vibe as and when you get those colors. So I'm interested in, well, or rather just going to make a request that as and when you deal with company logos and colors, can we also just look into making sure that those are colors that are more exclusive and that would not reenact or create certain impressions on other people, because the ones that are there, the colors that are there, not much can be done in terms of changing. But with this company, it's new, it's still going to be done. So those are the things that need to be considered. And then on the SFF presentation, I think I just have one question really there. And I think it's a question that one would have been asking, that looking at the dynamics of the country and globally, and how we really have no control over what might happen tomorrow, next month, and all those things. The strategic fuel stock that we have currently as the country, in the event that maybe we could have a catastrophic event, let's say for 1 to 3 months maybe, and as South Africa were unable at all to import anything from outside, would it be enough to actually cushion the country? And if not, what is being done or what can be done to make sure that we take into consideration such things? Because the dynamics globally and otherwise are telling us that we're not always going to have stability. And it does not make sense that at this point in time, South Africa, knowing all the things that are there, we are not putting measures in place for such emergencies. It could be wars, it could be this, it could be that. With that being said, thank you very much, Chairperson.
Chair, I'm waiting for guidance to start to respond.
Okay, I assume, Honorable Chair, that I should just get into the space and respond to the questions, if that is in order with yourself, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. So what I'm going to suggest is that Dr. Pulo deals with the questions.
It will be proper for you to respond because the chair said he's allowing members to come in first, then he will have his questions. So I'm not sure whether he has decided to not ask his questions, because it means you will have to ask the questions from Honorable Maylem and Madogwe, then again answer for Chairperson's questions. Ayanda, can you check where the chair is? Because he said he might have network challenges at 12. It's still 20 past 10 now.
I'm calling him now, Malinga.
Thank you.
I'm here, I'm talking to myself. Hello?
Yes, Chair, can you give guidance whether the group should respond or you're going to ask questions?
No, they must respond now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, for that guidance, and also Honorable Malinga, thank you very much. And what I was going to suggest is that the Group CE responds to the questions that have been asked, and then I will support him at the end, in particular with the transitionary board composition and how that process is going to unfold. Dr. Pulo.
No, thank you very much, Chair. To the Chair of the Portfolio and honorable members. Let me start with Honorable Maylan's question. Honorable Maylan, when the chair of this Central Energy Fund board started, she indeed started by giving some indication on the commercial aspects of the measure itself, and she had some numbers. Some of those related to the fact that as we begin with Synergy's Shale Services Initiative, we are projecting about R1 billion plus of activities of value that will be realized in the next 3 years. That's one. And the fact that we are pursuing 95 billion worth of opportunities, some of which we have already started, although there were, of course, some difficulties, as you would know. This is quite a complex measure in a sense that you have commercial aspects and non-commercial entities that are merging. So there are issues of compliance and how to navigate the PFMA and your Companies Act, amongst others. But just to add on some of those figures, we're looking at the projected EBITDA to grow to at about 11% over the period, reaching 20.4 billion in 2030. So those are there in the detailed business case in terms of the commercial profit aspects of the business case. And indeed, we would not have had a case for this had we not seen some of these opportunities and what they will bring to the, how they will improve the safe balance sheet. And in terms of the roadmap, Honorable Malin, on this slide that we are projecting, we are trying to highlight some of those, and perhaps as Honorable Madok has said, we're supposed to add the years. Where you see phase 2 is where we are currently. Your phase 1 activities in terms of the SNPC design and operational plan, those 2 ones are completed. You know, the design and incorporation activities, those are done. We are now where we are saying we are now into the phase 2 where we then begin to stabilize these activities, and those basically are to start 1st of April. So that will be our year 1, 2023. And then our year 2 will be 2023, 2024, 2025. And then 2025, 2026, it's your transformed NPC, which is fully fledged and fully operational. And then coming back to Honorable Madokwe, I think I've tried to outline on the timelines with this slide as well. And aspects of feasibility studies were done. Hence, we are having the business case as alluded that we are indeed chasing this EBITDA of about 11% per annum, you know, reaching that 12.4 billion in 2023. So those studies were done. And in terms of comparative studies and what is happening, just to cite one socio-economic aspect that you have so well defined, the fact that when the studies came, they showed that the world is over-refined amongst other aspects. And in it, our country-specific challenges, we are able to manage to input the fact that whilst the world is over-refined, South Africa is not. And hence, it also led to our reinforcement of policy position of ensuring that we have refining capacity in the country and a number of initiatives that our ultimate shareholder is driving to ensuring that we restore the refining capacity in the country. In as far as the Petroleum Agency is concerned, it will remain the regulator, but there will be that transition where it will report directly to the ultimate shareholder, the DMRE. In terms of the initiatives that will ensure some form of transformation, the ultimate shareholder has requested us to conduct a study where we look at infrastructure and how it can be used basically to ensure that there is that equitable distribution, and that we have gone on inquiry in that and will be able then to report on the outcome of that. That will then fit in on some of the initiatives that the DMRE has from a transformation point of view. Chair, in terms of course, the issue of skill, indeed, the emphasis, especially from our board and supported by the ultimate shareholder, is that we are just not going to get people for the sake of getting them. Skill is critical. Issues of experience and commitment are looked into. In fact, those become the key requirement for a person to be deployed in that regard. So all other issues that are relating to operational activities, of course, they are on our day-to-day in terms of the challenges when relate to theft and all other issues. We are really working on those and we'll continue to do so, so that we ensure that we cap on those losses. So I'll stop at that, Chair, and unless if something is still outstanding, we will then respond to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pulo. I appreciate the responses. Perhaps where I can just add is you've already covered the issue of the transitional board and the fact that, yes, we are going to look at the experience, skill, and commitment levels of those board members. As already alluded to, our day one is the 1st of April 2023, which will see us really making some substantial movements towards the second phase of the merger. But what is important also to note is that we will have a transitional board that is going to oversee the merger. And we are currently in discussions with the shareholder, the ultimate shareholder, in order to populate the transitional board. But in the medium to long term, the idea also is that we will have a permanent board that is then going to ensure the running of the company. The transitional board obviously will have to oversee the merger activities, which have been outlined on slide 7. If we can just go to the 7th slide, which really just outlines the key activities that are going to be overseen by the transitional board. I believe, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, that the questions pertaining to the merger have been dealt with. So I will be guided by the Honorable Chair again as to the timing of the responses to the questions that talk to the SFF presentation. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and the DG. I hope I didn't take over, DG.
Chairperson, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Malenga.
There's somebody who keeps on disturbing us here. Mike is on. I under my sharp or something. Can the participants mind their microphone, please?
Jackie, it's your mic that keeps on. Jackie Mashapu, please. Honorable members, there is the answers. Before I go to the next one, is there any follow-up? I want, before, as I'm looking, please, can I get a help, DG? Because I'm sure it will fall in your category here. Jackie, can you please switch off your mic? Please switch off your mic. I don't know, because it's off, you then open it again. Please respect the meeting. Please help me, DG. Maybe it will fall in your normally. I might be wrong legally. Normally, all entities are established according to a particular law, and they exist within that law. And one would expect that in that process, which is, I think that's also what becomes the interest of the committee, as it is primarily responsible for policy making, let alone oversight. I haven't had anything that talks to the law. That is okay, let me phrase it this way. Is there no requirement to repeal an existing law that established the existing entities before we can talk to the issue of a new entity, which again, my question will be, will that not require a new law? And I can't get, again, if I'm wrong, excuse my apologies. If I'm wrong, I can't get anything that puts timelines in terms of the legal standing of that entity. Just clarify me on those, on that particular aspect. I think also what honorable members were raising, maybe not openly, was that if you look in the previous report, it would have told you, except the fact that it has not been approved by cabinet. I fear that at times, yes, we may not dig what is it that cabinet had problems in terms of approval. But in my view, maybe even if it's not for this, the committee will not dig before the presentation is made if the matter requires to get the nod or approval of cabinet. But I hope I'm not wrong. An expectation will be, what is it that would have made cabinet to take this process for too long? I'm just saying, for instance, if I look at the time frame, the initial time frame to conclude this exercise, predominantly it has been put on hold because of the non-approval by cabinet. But in the presentation, one can get, if somebody says, so did you get now why there was this delays by cabinet? It did not. I can, from where I'm sitting, say, now I understand what were the concerns or the limitations that cabinet has. I hope you get the context that I'm saying, so that your timelines, they also took to the challenges that we're faced with. Your timelines, as they move forward, they also reflect what are the steps that you need to go through them. So I'm just saying the two combined, they make it difficult for a committee to understand specifically its role in the entire process, except to say it has been informed. But in terms of it understanding if somebody were to say for 3 years now, we have been talking about this, what would have been the challenges? And understand, again, I'm saying from a committee point of view, you get limitations because this has to go particular stages and you have to allow those stages. I hope you understand the context. Is there any further questions, honorable members, or follow-ups, or like it was stated, there is a question that honorable members would have asked and was not responded to? Okay, I see the hand of Honorable Malinga. Is there any other hand? Okay, you can answer what I raised, DG and the chair and the team of staff, as well as the... Oh, sorry, Honorable Malinga, it's only you, sorry. I pretended as if now you've already asked the question.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. It's not a follow-up question. Greetings to all honorable members on the platform, the SAFE group, and our committee staff, everybody who's on the call. Chair, I just, one question. I think the issue of the merger of iGas and SFF and PetroSA, the SAFE group was coming to give us an update on the progress that they have made. But my question, Chairperson, is on Saldanha presentation, because I'm not sure.
We're coming to Saldanha.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. DG and Noah and Dr. Pulo.
No, thank you, Chair. I think from our side, the questions that have been asked around the requirements for the law. Yes, there is a bill that has been drafted by the department and will soon be going out on consultation. I will, with your permission, allow DG to just go into some details around the chairperson. But to also touch on, there's a question that was earlier asked by Honorable Madokwe around the provisions in the act, that bill that you're consulting on around the agency and how will it work in relation to the NPC. She will also just touch on the chairperson. And on the debates by cabinet, I presume the colleagues will clarify. I think, Chair, as you correctly indicated, with all the work that we do, there are various stages that we go to approvals, and if certain things are not clear, from time to time we'll be sent back to go and clarify them. And I guess the colleagues will clarify them. So technically, it's not delayed by cabinet, but it's more around the work that the team had to go and refine. But I'm assuming the chairperson or the group CEO will clarify that. With your permission, Chair, before I hand over to the SEF group, I would request that DG maybe just touch on the 2 points around the development of the law, as well as the provision in the current bill that you're consulting on, the agency that is referred to in that bill. Over to you, DG Mark.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members and colleagues. So on the question, Chair, around the that was asked earlier on the agency and the state carry in the upstream petroleum bill. So currently the situation is that PetroSA, as the agency that does licensing for the oil and gas sector, is designated in terms of Section 70 of the MPRDA. And that was done because oil and gas activities were sort of an appendix to the mining legislation, which is the MPRDA. So the decision that was then taken after thorough consultations with different stakeholders was that we probably then should make provision for the proper establishment of PetroSA as an agency on its own. And that's what the upstream petroleum bill makes provision for. So it is a legally established in the bill, but also there is then a separate provision that talks to the carried interest of the state. And what we were envisaging when we were drafting the bill was that the National Petroleum Company will be the one that will carry the state share in petroleum rights. So it's two separate entities. PetroSA will sit on its own as a licensing agency to support the Ministry of the Department, and the NPC will hold the carried interest of the state on behalf of all South Africans. Then coming to the question as to whether there is a law, Honorable Chair. Yes, as of mid-year last year, we started working, in fact earlier than that, we started working on a draft National Petroleum Company bill. And we had several sessions with colleagues at SEF and colleagues outside the department, colleagues at National Treasury, and we do have a draft, which draft then we will start in the new financial year as of the 1st of April, with the consultation processes formally through the cluster and going to cabinet, requesting cabinet to allow us to gazette the draft bill. And so the process then will unfold. But the aim with that bill is really for the establishment of the National Petroleum Company as a company that will carry the interest of the state in all oil and gas rights. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, Group Chair.
Thank you very much, DG. Honorable Chair, if I can just maybe as an opening remark, just refer again to these updates that I made as I was reflecting on the journey of the merger. On the 5th of May 2021, we did go to Cabinet Committee, which then requested that we do an independent secondary review process, which was really a request that we provide some commercial and legal assurance of the process. And perhaps let me ask the CE to just talk to a little bit to the details of that request and how it then was part of the delay in the process. Dr. Polo.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks once again to honorable members. The other aspect, basically, beside those of validation that the cabinet was concerned with, it was that our approach at the time was that we would then kind of ring-fence toxic assets and put it on the side and deal with it later. So Cabinet wanted us to address this aspect to say, how are we going to deal with this toxic asset, mainly looking at the challenges that we had at PetroSA. And in that regard, we had to go back and do some work to say, instead of dealing with it later on, how do we deal with it now, as it were, as part of the solution? And hence, honorable members would have noticed that we've gone on an inquiry, basically looking for technical and financial partners in order to ensure that there is feedstock, in order to ensure that the plant is back to full operation, as it were. Amongst those issues that management has conducted or done was to re-look into the aspects of decommissioning liability, so that we can make that asset investment attractive, as it were. So those were aspects, and we have, to the satisfaction of Cabinet, addressed those concerns on how we will deal with the legacy entity challenges. Thank you.
Thanks very much, CE, for that clarification. I'm going to hand back to yourself, Honorable Chair, and honorable members.
Okay, thank you, DG. My request would be, because the issue of legislation is directed at a particular impact, it has to make over a period of time, that even if it is not contained in the report, if you can just help us, because I thought you were going to answer that question. Maybe the new proposed legislation will answer the question, whether you repeal the existing act that establishes the existing entities, or you just bring in a new law that establishes the entities, which will then also deal with the question that the latter statement that was made in terms of the decommissioning impact. But I would suggest that, so that next time when you appear, at least in the report, unlike now, in the report, it must be able to say, these are the type of the founding or the establishing legislations we intend to, in the process, in terms of your process, so that the question that was raised by members, including the issue of agents, it can be taken care of from an informed point of view of the members of the committee. But I don't see any other matter. Can I take hands now for the Saldanha Milnerton? The first hand was that of Honorable Malinga. I see the hand of Honorable Milam. Is there any other hand? I'm going 1, 2, 3. The matter is closed. Honorable Malinga.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just wanted clarity on the Saldanha issue, whereby I think the presenter made mention that.
Sorry, can we now take off self and reflect the SFF? Continue not balling in the meantime.
Okay, Chair. Though I don't need the presentation, I just was taken aback by the statement from the presenter from SFF, whereby they said they are building a pipeline and they got the tariffs approved. So I wanted to check that, is this in line with the merger? Because Saldanha is also on this merger, whether does it go hand in hand, or maybe they are still doing their own thing while the merger is going on. I just wanted clarity on that one, Chairperson, in terms of them applying for the Section 79. If maybe I could be clear, maybe I missed something on the presentation, Chairperson. That's all I wanted to ask, Chair.
Chair, can I go ahead?
Yes, Honorable Mayor. The reason I sometimes allow you to go ahead is because it takes time sometimes to open the mic.
No problem, Chair. Thank you. Chair, I have two questions. The first relates to Saldanha. And my concern here is the Avidia merger. I'm concerned that this is stepping beyond the mandate of the SFF and putting the SFF firmly in the commercial sector and therefore in competition with the private sector of storage and distribution of petroleum products. Now, I'd really like some clarity as to what the chairperson sees the mandate of the SFF to be, and whether or not the merger actually addresses that mandate, or if it extends beyond and into the commercial sector. The second question relates to the Milnerton tank farm. Chair, we were there in 2020, and it's been some time since then, but there appears to have been very little progress on the upgrading and refurbishment of Milnerton. And I read through the timeline and I saw the reasons for that, but it concerns me that we're taking this process incredibly slowly and in very small bites. And I'd really like to see a much more aggressive and quick win to get Milnerton operational again and to get it fully functional. You know, it's been standing like that for years, and this process has been delayed. When we were there, it had already been delayed for several years. It's now been delayed a further 2-3 years, and we're not seeing the progress that we should see. So I really want to raise a red flag here and say this is a problem and it needs to be addressed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, DG and your team.
Thank you, Chair. I will allow the CEO of SFF through the group chair to respond.
Thank you very much, DG. I just wanted to also remind the CEO as he presents that he also remembers there was a question from Honorable Madoba, which talks about the geopolitical events and how they then impact on where we are. And if I have anything that I need to top up on, I will do so. Mr. Moahe.
Thank you very much, Chair. My apologies for coming in earlier on. Chair and honorable members, on the issue of the risk as raised by Honorable Madoba, Chair, maybe just a step back. In the last 24 months, actually 12 months, we have lost 300,000 barrels per day of refining capacity because the refineries are closed. So, you know, as of today, we actually have the capacity to refine just over 200,000 barrels per day from the two currently operating crude refineries. So the question of if we were to hit, crisis tomorrow, honorable member, the last directive that we had was to hold 21 days of crude as a result of closure of the refineries that I just mentioned The current stock in tank is about 50 days. Just as a reminder, I mean, the sailing period or the lead time from West Africa, whether it is Nigeria, Angola, Ghana, is about 12 to 15 days. So basically, we've got enough stock even at 21 days. If you're talking crude, to be able to replenish and actually get those refineries to continue running. Where there is a challenge is as a result of closure of the refineries, it opens a gap because if we hit crisis, we may have enough crude, but we do not necessarily have enough fuel to keep the country running. And we've been working tirelessly with the department to look at, the options in terms of, should we then be looking at strategic stock of finished product to make sure that the country can be kept wet should we hit crisis. And that's an ongoing piece of work. But in terms of crude, yes, we do have enough stock as of today to be able to run and replenish. Honorable Malinga, in terms of the pipeline, if you go back to the merger strategy, SFF activities would be transferred to the merged company. SFF is identified as a midstream business, and that includes pipeline, tankage, and storage. So the activities that we are undertaking will not necessarily disappear as a result of the merger. If anything, actually, considering the rest of the country, will need to do more of that. So infrastructure is actually at the core of the merged companies to ensure security of supply. So the LPG pipeline that we are building, I might remember in the last 3 years, almost every winter, Western Cape runs out of LPG. And not that there is no LPG in the market, but there is no infrastructure to receive LPG into the country to ensure continuity of supply. And what SFF is building is actually, within this mandate, which goes to the next question from Honorable Mailan. But to assure you, is not going in a different direction with the measure. Honorable Mailan, the Avedia acquisition actually is, in our view, not in competition with the private sector. And part of the challenge that we are having with supply, whether it's finished product, LPG, in the country, is, the access to infrastructure. So our view is we're not going to necessarily be chasing to bring LPG, but having that infrastructure and being open access, it actually allows any supplier to come into the country and bring LPG. So, our view is that we are not necessarily competing with them. They do bring LPG to trade. We open the infrastructure to make sure that there is enough access to be able to bring the product into the country. So that's how we view our position with Avedia. In terms of Milnerton, I think, the last time when we at the committee presented this, honorable member will remember that there has been development, residential development and malls around Milnerton. And we spent quite a long time in dispute with the developer next door, which actually also included the engagement with the city of Cape Town. And I think, if I remember, initially the push was, for the terminal to close. That matter ended up in court. It was in court for a very long time, and only the back end, I think around November late 2021, we reached a settlement with the developer. Although even today they're still pushing very hard to come closer to the boundary. And after that settlement, if we look at the timelines, we actually started working on that project. And the project plan and the timeline, what has been achieved so far since that court case was dealt with, is we believe we've made a lot of progress. The delay that we had to deal with was to deal with that court case, because our view was that it would have been reckless while we dealing with pressure to close the terminal to just go and spend money. So as soon as that was done, we started working on it. In the last 12 months, we have cleaned the tanks. I'm currently busy with the inspection to actually deal with the scope of work in terms of exactly what needs to be done. And then, from there, it will be, steel and welding to make sure that those tanks are operational. Thank you very much, Chair. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moahe. Perhaps what I just wanted to emphasize then is just to support that for us to ensure that our mandate of security of supply is properly deployed through our subsidiaries, it is very important that we consider the fact that the finished products now has emerged as a critical matter that needs to be factored into our security of supply. And hence, it is important that we start looking at those things over and above just looking at our storage of crude stocks for the country. And it's also important that these merging companies still continue with the activities in parallel that are going to continue with making sure that they are sustainable and also ensure that our growth agenda is achieved. So the design of the merger and how it's implemented actually takes into account the fact that the companies are still continuing with what they need to do in order to ensure their sustainability and also in order to ensure that growth does indeed happen. And it has been designed in such a way that to transfer those activities into the merged company actually happens seamlessly. That is what I wanted to amplify, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. DG, I will hand over to you in case you would like to just add any other comments. Thank you.
DG?
Person, we're done. Thank you. Back to you. Apologies. Thought I was unmuted.
Well, I'm calling the to umdepo. See, umdepo awucisha umuntu wawo belighting. Okay, honorable members, there is the answer to the question, to the issues raised. Will I be correct to say we are not done? It's just an update. To the best of my knowledge, the oversight was not finished. I hope I'm correct. So we still have to finalize that part especially on the issues that were raised with regards to the report that was there. Is there any follow-up, honorable members, or completely new questions before we go to the next item? Going 1, 2, 3. Okay, none. DG, because you are in charge, the only crime that you have committed, DG, Shan of SEF and the CEO of SEF, is that in my loitering around, I bumped to a very long lost colleague of mine in somewhere where we served together. He was my chair then where I was serving. And in talking, he told me that he is now part of the family of SEF. And SEF never told us, neither the department ever informed us that at SFF, there is a new chairperson of the board of SFF. And when we bump again, we will say the same thing and say we don't know because you were never confirmed, even when you were not present in the meeting. Can I take the last word from you, DG, or the chair of SEF? You'll decide amongst yourselves, and then we'll go to the next item.
No, thank you, Chair, and apologies for that. Can I request the chair of SEF to introduce the new chair, group chair?
Thank you very much, DG. Honorable Chair and honorable members. My recollection is that at the last meeting, which was last Tuesday, I actually did introduce all the chairs of the board. However, if my account at this point is not correct, I will then apologize, Honorable Chair and honorable members, but I thought that I had introduced all the chairs. So at SFF, currently we've got Chair Sipho Mkhize, who is the new chair who joined in December last year. I think I had also introduced that at PASA, we've got a new chair there as well, Chair Rupa, Chair Satish Rupa, who has joined PASA as the chair also in December. Those were the new changes that we had, Honorable Chair and honorable members. And again, if I am incorrect in saying that I did introduce, I sincerely apologize. Thank you very much, DG. Thank you.
No, thanks, Group Chair. Chairperson, I was also, because I was not in the meeting last week, as I was not away, I was actually informed by text that the introduction was done last week. Maybe the chair missed that, because I'm aware that sometimes when you do these things through virtual, the network is a challenge, Chair. But that said, those are the new introductions to the board, Chair. And over to you. Thank you.
Okay, don't worry. Also, age is no longer on our side for some of us. And some people are like it. They can be forgotten and be introduced twice. But thank you very much with that information. And welcome to the two chairpersons of your subsidiaries, to this big combination of minds, and hope that you'll find it quite fertile to operate. On that note, honorable members, can we go to the minutes, Ari and Ayanda?
21 February, Chair.
Oh, sorry. You see, now I'm talking to myself. I'm saying start from we can't start with number 6. That's the end of the meeting, number 6. Yes. This thing of the mics. Okay. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Is there any mover of the minutes? Is there any over of the minutes? 1, 2.
I move, Chair.
Any seconder? Going 1. It's gonna be for the first time there are minutes who don't have a seconder. Going 1, 2. It means we don't have a second of the minutes. Let's go. Is there any other set of minutes?
Yes, Chair. 3 sets still.
Yeah. Let's go. Unfortunately, we won't go back to those ones. We'll deal with them again in the next meeting. Can you put the next set of minutes?
24 February, Chair.
Yes. Let's go to 1. 2. That is 3. Number 4. Number 5. Is there any move of the minutes?
Yes, Chair. I move for the adoption of the minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Number, any seconder? Any seconder? Going 1.
Chair.
I'm Cherry. Yeah, seconding. Thank you, Honorable Malinga. Any matters arising? One, 2, 3. That's okay. Is there any other set of minutes, Ari?
Yes, Chair, 2 sets.
Yes, let's go.
February, Chair.
Yes. Going, yes, Ari, number 1. Number 2. No corrections. Any mover of the set of minutes?
I move for the adoption of the minutes, Chair.
Any seconder? Any seconder?
Yes, again, Sihlalo.
Thank you. Any matters arising? Nothing. Let's go to the last set of minutes.
March, Chair.
Yes. Going 1. Going 2. Going 3. That is 2. Number 3. Number 4. Any mover of the minutes?
I do move, Chair.
Any seconder?
Yamukela Sihlalo. Angithi sewumsebenzi wethu phela.
Thank you. No. Is there any matters arising? In the absence of matters arising, Honorable, yes, Honorable Malik.
Though we were not dealing with it, but I think that's when you told us about that Makua correspondence. If I'm correct, Mr. Kotse, was the 7th or the one that was sent to us that we needed to discuss as a committee?
Yes, you are correct that the matter will be tabled as an item in the committee.
Yes, I'm proposing that it should be tabled, Chair. It should not fall into the cracks. Thank you very much.
No, it's in the program. It's going to be scheduled as an agenda item. Let me put it like that. And the necessary documentation will be forwarded to members beside the correspondence. All the required documentation so that members are empowered when they make a decision. That is guaranteed. Okay. On that note, honorable members, can I declare the meeting adjourned until further notice? Thank you very much. Oh, no. Honorable members, sorry. And why are you allowing me to, or you want to inform us? Honorable members, we are redrafting the program for the oversight visits. No, not oversight, for the public hearing, especially the Northern Cape, and to some degree, we'll have to look at the Popo that might be affected, because there are new programs that were brought in through the parliamentary process that now tends to limit us doing the work according to our plans. We will then revert back to you in terms of a revised program for the public hearings. On that note, thank you very much, honorable members, and thank you, the department. Thank you to staff and the subsidiaries. The meeting stands adjourned.